Community Weekly Podcast. Brought to you by Ahmed Khalid and Ahmed Al Hamamsi from Middle East. Our Global S&OP Community Podcast mission is to build a global community from supply chain, marketing, trade marketing, sales and finance all over the world, where everyone's voice could be heard and listened. Every week, we host a new episode with great thought leader in the S&OP industry. We believe that one word, one story, or one conversation could open up the light in the screen of your consciousness and you'll never be the same again. We discuss hot and trending topics with our subject matter experts by asking the right questions that uncover their valuable experience in our show. You can visit our website ahmedkhaled.co. Stay tuned every week with our Global S&OP Community podcast. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all those beautiful people who are listening and watching us right now around the globe. Welcome again with another new episode with our Global S&OP Community podcast. And may I ask you, as usual, can I ask you to write where are you from in the comment so I can send you some greetings for you and your amazing country. Let me just remind you by our mission. Our mission in our podcast is building a global community not only from supply chain, but also from marketing, trade marketing, sales, and finance, where everyone's voice could be listened and heard. That's why we specified this podcast for you, as your voice matter for us. And we need you in our community. I'm saying it from my heart. We need you with us. We need you to be with us with your experience, with your stories and struggles, asking questions wherever, whenever you want. We need your experience, we need your knowledge, and we need your stories. And just to let you know, we are hosting global thought leaders in the S&OP field to uncover their valuable experience and knowledge to our community. What we can guarantee you is that the knowledge that you will receive in our podcast is a knowledge that you will never find in any book. A knowledge of years and years of experience in the marketplace from our thought leaders. I have also a good news to our community. Last week, our podcast was ranked from the top business 200 podcasts on Apple and iTunes. This gives us more motivation to influence and touch more lives every day by our experience and our values. You can interact directly with us in real time, and especially with our great thought leaders right now, where you can ask many questions in your mind with our subject matter experts and guests and just guests. And just let you think with me any question that you will ask it in spot, we will be able to answer it on a real time. And to listen just to our previous podcasts, you can simply open iTunes, search by Global S&OP Community. You will find our podcast in that place. Subscribe to our podcast, and you will be always notified by every and each new episode that we have. You can listen to our podcast and absorb as much values as you can. Let me just send some greetings for lovely people that they're here today. I think that we have many audience today. So we have our friend Mitchell. Ways to go, guys. Thank you so much, Mitchell, for your time. We have our friend Judith. Good evening from Finland. Great to see you, Judith. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have our friend Muhammad Shadi. Best of luck, friends. Thank you, Muhammad, for tuning in. Our lovely friend Luis Alberto. Hello, best regards from Guatemala. Thank you so much for tuning in, my brother. We have our friend Umayma. Best of luck, Reda. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have also our friend Sombal Farouk. Good evening. Thank you for tuning in. As usual, we have some technical issue. LinkedIn user saying best of luck. Khalid, thank you so much for tuning in. We have our friend Ala Sultan, Saudi Arabia. Great to see you. Thank you, Ala, for tuning in. Our friend Muhammad Mahfouz. I'm not sure why is it country, city, but thank you for tuning in, Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. Our friend Fatima, best of luck from Egypt. Thank you, Fatima, for tuning in. Our friend, as usual, Mitchell from UAE. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Our friend also, Hisham Zaki from Egypt. Thank you, guys. Mahmoud Reda, Egypt. Thank you, guys, for tuning in. Just coming back to our topic, and today topic just it's considered one of the biggest struggles, especially for operational functions. And I'm saying it because I was in the same place. Functions that they are overwhelmed or just somehow they're drawn by operations to a big extent that they don't think how the business can be operated. Our topic today is very essential if you want to excel in either a business or even your career. Without this topic, mostly you will be stagnant in your place. Our topic today is the S&OP Financials. And many questions could be came into your mind, especially in that moment. Do you know what is the meaning and what is the real meaning of income statement? Or maybe sometimes we name it the P&L, which is the profit and loss statement. Do you know what are the elements inside the P&L and how it's been allocated? What would be the importance of P&L? Do you know also what is the balance sheet and what will be the difference if you understand what is the balance sheet? What will be even the aim of tracking the cash flow of the business? Will it affect your business? Yes or no? I guarantee you that this episode today will be full of not boring stuff, and it will not be full of just numbers that will might you wouldn't might or just you might not understand it. I guarantee you that it will be very, 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 very exciting, and it will be easy to understand. I guarantee you this. You will ask me why are you confident about this guarantee, and I'll tell you why. Because we have today a very special guest who will nurture our episode with zero boredom. Our guest today is Mahmoud Reda. Mahmoud Reda is the head of finance of Unilever, Levant, and Iraq. He is a great presenter and amazing storyteller. He has over 12 years of experience in business, and he was one of the biggest pillars of implementing the S&OP process end to end, just starting from activity planning, scenario planning, financial planning, and even cash up. His way of communication, and I'm saying it really from my heart, is very powerful with his simple way of explanation. He has a rich experience in business partnering, especially in marketing, customer development, including different roles across Middle East, Egypt, KSA, and currently he is based in UAE. May I ask you, please, to welcome with me Mahmoud Reda. But before we welcome Mahmoud Reda, and as usual, let's give him some applause. Hello, Mahmoud.
Hi, Ahmed. Thank you so much for this introduction. You set the expectation too high for me.
It's my pleasure, Mahmoud, and I believe that today it will be an amazing topic because I'm sure 100% that many people that they are waiting for this episode for a long time because it will be a life changing, especially with you and your way of communication and simplicity. We will totally understand today what is the profit and loss statement, balance sheet, and cash and the cash flow. So, are you ready?
Yeah, let's join the journey. I think it will be fabulous session today, and I
Yeah.
assure you it will not be boring numbers. And disclaimer, it's not an accounting session. It is just a business discussion. and how to speak the language of the S&OP. I can promise you of that.
100%, and because I know you already. So let me start. I will share my screen and let us. Yeah, I think now we are good to go. So the mic is over to you, Reda.
Yeah, so let's agree that with the great audience and host, it's a pleasure, Ahmed, to be in that show. I saw that show from the early beginning, and I can see the interaction was around one or two participants, and now it is something incredible, to be honest with you. It is a massive
Thank you,
learning for
Reda.
everyone, and I make sure that I join every podcast and every session when you go live on that.
It's a pleasure.
And I think it's an honor and pleasure to be with you on that session, and hope that link it to our purpose in life, that we can share knowledge and make sure that we give back to the society and give back to our community in whatever ways we agree on. That's where we should live in, across all the aspects. So the second point, this is not a monotone session. So we're gonna have an interaction through the slides. It's just a few slides, and then we're gonna have a lot of questions. Feel free to ask all your questions whenever you have, and
Yeah.
let's jump into the discussion.
Yes, thanks for highlighting this, Reda, just to let our audience just to be on track. So, to understand the frame of working and the flow of our communication today in our presentation. So, feel free after each slide, just ask your question, and I will try to jump into the question. And then after finishing the questions, we can jump into the next slide. So, I think it's clear, guys. So, feel free to ask whatever question into your mind.
Super. So now I think, Ahmed, we should start that the financials of the S&OP is not something nice to have. And I think it's not only for the S&OP. Wherever you work, whatever is your background, in whatever industry, the financials is simply, I call it the basic language that you need to speak in the business. And even when you continue your postgraduate studies, there is a must-have module of financials. You cannot get your postgraduate studies without financials. Some people, they run away from financials. I understand that they don't want to get into the
Yeah.
financials in details and complication. But trust me, the minute you understand the financials and you speak the language, you're in different league within your organization or even managing your own business. Um, uh, Especially these days where we have COVID hitting everywhere. Now, based on the charts on the screen, so based on the S&OP, whenever there's an agreement without a common language, imagine you're walking in a room where you have 3 or 4 different nationalities and each one is speaking different language and we don't have common language to speak. The ultimate destination will be a disaster because there will be a lot of misunderstanding between the business. And that's the beauty of the S&OP. Because in the S&OP, we don't have different nationalities, but we have different backgrounds with different targets. So you have finance person, you have salesperson, marketing, you have shopper marketing, you have brand development. So all of these people sitting around the table, and if there is no common language to speak, there will be a complete misunderstanding. And that's what I
Yeah.
mean by this chart, that if the agreement is not clear and the language is not clear in terms of KPI within the financials or within the S&OP, the destination will be, as you can see, failed journey within the chart. So that's very important. You have to bear in mind that in order to speak the S&OP language, you need to know the numbers. And whatever numbers, if you go to the next chart, please, Ahmed. So whatever the number, if it's stocks, as you said in your post, if it is in getting a new production line, if it is about getting a safety stock, remember the one of
Yeah.
your sessions before, all of this has a certain implication into the financials. And if you don't know the implication into the financials, you will not be able even to convince your finance team or your partner or even your team what's the logic behind implementing that. That's very important. And for the last 12 years dealing with different partners, and I'll share some examples where you get a shock feedback from a different background, from a finance person, where you need to explain to them 101 financials, basic financials, so they can speak your language and even excel more in their function, whatever their function within the business. So that's a quick introduction that S&OP Financials is not something nice to have. It is something urgent, something very basic and important for way forward to communicate
Yeah.
or to speak within the S&OP Financials. You've mentioned before, Ahmed, that S&OP Financials or S&OP Forum is not only for the people within the room. You remember you said that before.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone in the organization, they have a direct impact on the S&OP, on the sales and
Mm.
operational plan. And based on that, you don't have to be in the room to speak the language. Even if you're walking in the corridor or you're sitting in your desk, if you don't know the financials, you will not even be able to communicate your plan and to communicate your target and deliver your target. So that's not a prestigious situation that you need to speak the financials within the room of the S&OP. Even wherever you are in the organization, you have to speak the language of the organization, which is at the end financials at the end. Now, if you go to the
Exactly.
next slide, please. So we'll just make it simple. And again, this is not an accounting session. It's a business session, and I'll give you some life examples. And please feel free to share all your questions, all your comments. If you have any incident before within the financials or with your finance partner, feel free to post it on the chat. Now, financial statements of any organization, whether service, production, end-to-end, B2B, business to business, business to consumer, whatever kind of business you have a three basic financial. There's one fourth one, but let's focus on these three for now. So what's financial statement? Financial statement simply shows where the company money came from. This is very important, where we get the money from. Number two, where it went. So what exactly we spent and invested the money and how. And number three, where is it now? Because it's either we receive the money or we spend the money or we have the money now. So think about this. So it's simply giving you the direction of the money, where it's coming from, where you're spending, and where the money is located now. Now, to have these three questions answered, we have three different statements, and we're going to go through them. The first one, which is a fabulous statement called balance sheet, and we're going to go through it in a few seconds. The second one is called the income statement, which is the P&L, profit and loss, or income statement. And the third one is cash flow statement. I don't think we have enough time for the cash flow statement. So today we're going to just zoom in on the first two statements, which is the balance sheet and income statement. Now, if you go to the next slide, please. That's a simple example of the income statement. So the main difference between the income statement and the balance sheet, remember, it's a point of time. So it is exactly a date. So there is nothing called a balance sheet for a certain period of time, because it's just a balance. So if I ask you, Ahmed, what is your bank account balance in the bank now? You will tell me it's X. And this X is labeled on a certain date. So you cannot tell me that my balance for the last 3 months is X. This is an income
Debit and the
statement.
credit, yeah.
Exactly. It is not a balance sheet. Now, if you go to the income statement, and quickly I created a dummy income statement on Excel sheet, where simply income statement shows the sales that you're selling in the market, and it has to be for a period of time. That's the main difference. Whatever you sell in the market, you have the price for that product or service in the market. If you multiply the price by the quantity you're selling in the market, you have the sales value that you have in the market. Now, based on that, if you have any return from the market, you subtract this sales from the sales value. And if you have any discounts, any trade investments that you have in the market, you have to put that investment in as well in the P&L, where the net summation of that is sales revenue. And let's pause here for a few seconds. One of the questions I received from a supply chain, sorry, Ahmed, I got that question from supply chain. Why finance complicating all of these statements or in the income statement? Why don't we have all the revenue on one side, and then we subtract all the cost from the other side, and then we have the net revenue or net income at the end? Why you're making our life extremely complicated? And to be honest, one size does not fit all. Whenever you go to doctor, you have a special doctor for each disease. And that's where you see the income statement, where it is like an X-ray on the business to see where the challenge is coming from and how you can take it forward. That's the beauty of the income statement. That simply, it shows where the challenge is and where is the opportunity lies for, where you can go and catch. So if you stop at the sales revenue, within this line, this is very simple. We have a different lines. It's like a tree within these 3-4 lines. But if you go and examine the sold volume, where you're selling, how much you're selling, for what period you're selling, what is the comparison versus previous period if you're selling. This is only a volume analysis and what kind of mix you're selling in terms of volume. If you go to the price, which is a very big subject in terms of what is your pricing strategy, how you're pricing in the market, and what is the pricing impact on your volume. So whenever you increase your price, what's the expected volume drop? Whenever you reduce your price, what's the expected volume growth based on that? Where is your tactics in terms of pricing, in what region, what country? So this is very, very important to understand. And wherever you're not delivering your sales, you need to go through this section, which is the top part of the P&L or the income statement, to analyze
Mhm.
where the gap is coming from. And it is a volume challenge, which is distribution, for example, or it's a price challenge where you're pricing wrong in the market, or you don't have the right pricing in the market. So that's the beauty of the first section, where you have all the analysis related to the top line or the top
Mhm.
part of the P&L. Now, yeah, go ahead, Ahmed.
Yeah, just if you can hold for a second, I think that we have the first question from our friend Mitchell. He's asking, I have a question. What is the main set of numbers that would be delivered for your financials? Would it be demand plan of the sales plan? I think that he rectified something. He said, sorry, I meant the demand plan or the sales forecast. So he's
Yeah,
asking, would it be the demand plan or the sales forecast?
yeah. I think that's a good question. Now, when we say about P&L, you can have a P&L for all scenarios, for example. So if sales is planning for a certain volume, Al-Haddad, you can have a P&L for that volume from a sales perspective, where you have the sales, the pricing, and we're gonna go through all the rest of the income statement elements. And you have this P&L, and you can label it. This is the sales P&L for the period of quarter one, for example, and it is given by sales. That's one P&L, clear. Now, you have the constraints because whatever you dream of cannot be reflected or serviced. And we have Ahmed from a supply chain experience background, where you have the response from the company, how they can fulfill their sales, or if this
Mm.
is the right financial gross model from a finance point of view. So we create another P&L, for example, comparison for that, and we call it supply chain P&L. This is the supply chain respond to the sales P&L. And then we have finance concern on that. That, for example, you're asking for 2D promotion, or the mix you're selling is not driving the right gross financial model for the company. So we have another P&L, for example, based on the constraints, which is a proposed P&L, for example, where, for example, finance and marketing, they see that this is the right fit for the brand building, and we call it finance and marketing P&L. And the beauty about that, you can put all these three P&Ls compared together on the screen.
Mhm.
And then based on that, you can decide. So that's simply to answer your question. I hope I answer your question when it comes to the PNL. So PNL is not a specific one person PNL. Whatever proposed scenario, you can create PNL for that, and the numbers will speak itself based on the
Yeah.
strategy of the company to land in the market.
Yeah, specifically, Reda, just if you allow me to add something, I think also somehow the P&L is embedding the whatever period back, I would say like a year to date, whatever actualized, and also whatever period that year to go. If I'm talking about a full year P&L, so it also take into consideration the full actualization, and then I believe that demand plan, yes, should be influenced with the sales, and it was also will be shaped by the demand will be shaped by the sales and marketing plans, and even the supply plans will be also one of the constraints that will shape the demand. But at the end of the day, the aim from S&OP, it's only one forecast, just to be aligned for the full business. So the demand plan at a certain point, I would say in stage four for the S&OP or the weekly, uh, it should be demand plan is the sales forecast. There is no difference between both, and the mix that after this mix on SQ level, it will be trigger the cash up or the financial plans or whatever the plans that you have it year to go and the full year as well.
Super. I agree, Ahmed. Fully aligned on what you're saying.
Yeah, I think we have another question before we jump into the next slide or coming back to our question. So we have Mai Abu Ghanam. She is asking, what do you mean by supply chain people cost?
Yeah. So, Mai, you're ahead of the game. You went through all the numbers. You're asking that question ahead. Thank you so much for asking this question. So if you can hold your question, I'll go through the supply chain cost range, and I'll make sure I answer your question. And please write back to me if I did answer your question. Now, once we reach the sales revenue in the market, which is mainly the total sales that you have the cost of that product. Let's assume, for example, you have an cooking oil company where you have a production of that product, for example. So you have a raw material ingredients that you need to use, and this is the cost of good sold, not produced, where exactly the exact value of the raw material attached to 1,000 unit, for example, in that example. That's one element. You have the packaging cost, where once you produce, once you have this finished product, you need to put it on a pack. So that's the packaging product related to that sold quantity, because we have product produced which is not sold. This is where lies in the balance sheet. We're going to see
Inventory.
that the beauty of the balance sheet later on. But here you have it, the cost of goods sold, exactly whatever the cost attached to what you sell in the market in the P&L. So you have the like for like comparison. You have the conversion cost, where you have the machinery, production lines attached to that. And back to your question, Mai, which is the people cost. The beauty about the supply chain cost, which is very important, that whatever costs attached to direct or indirect to the product within the factory, it has to be accounted within the supply chain cost range. You cannot go beyond that. And we're going to see other lines in the P&L later on where we have people, they don't deal direct with the product in the market. And we have something called direct and indirect cost for the product. Why we're doing this, Mai, which is very important? Because whenever you control your cost and you do an efficiency on cost, you have the leverage in the market to compete more and to grow more, which is very important now. There is a say in the multinationals and all other companies that whoever has the control over costs, whoever will win the game at the end. And that's why the beauty of the supply chain cost range in the P&L or the income statement, that we're having the people cost attached to producing the product, not only managing as an overall company, it is exactly the people related to the product. And that's what do we mean by supply chain people cost, which is mainly engineers, workers within the factory. It's important to account for this cost within the supply chain cost range. It cannot be accounted for. And later on, you're going to see a different example where we have other people cost that they are managing the overall business. Definitely, there is a direct impact to the product, but not within the production space. Let me put it this way to make it simple. So,
Perfect.
Yeah, go ahead, Ahmed.
Perfect. Well, just I think that we have covered now the question for Mai, and if Mai, you can ask whatever question from the supply chain people cost. I think Mai, she's asking also another question, Reda. So she is asking, how do you set the year to go?
Yeah. So thank you so much, Mai, for that question. So when you say year to go, you mean the forecast, because
Exactly.
within the P&L, we said we agreed that the income statement, it is for a period of time. It's not like the balance sheet, and I'm going to go through the balance sheet. So in the P&L, you can have year to date, which is actual. For example, if we're now in October, you have year to date September of the year, which is actual on the system. And you have the year to go, which is simply the forecast, the financial forecast. And the financial forecast is the ultimate product coming out of the S&OP. And within the S&OP, we have to discuss the S&OP financials. So to answer your question, whatever we speak about year to go, it is mainly the foundation of the year to go has to be the S&OP financials, which is the collaborative input from all the parties attached to the S&OP within the organization. And then the ultimate destination out of the S&OP financials is simply the financial forecast, where you have the forward forecast for the coming period of time, or even next year, or even 3-4 years ahead of that. So that's to answer your question on the year to go.
Perfect, Reda. I think it's wonderful. We have another question from our friend Jet. He is saying, is it still a common practice to use Excel to manage income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow in the Middle East?
Yeah. So, Jet, let me answer your question in a different way. So we cannot generalize on all companies. And when I say that, I use Excel just to make it simple, just to draft this P&L, just to answer this question. And to be honest with you, the digital mindset or technology, it is a mindset. It's not about the tool. If you have the know-how on how to automate and how to use different technology, you will use it even in very simple tools and basic tools. Definitely, I'm not promoting basic tools because now the digitalization, even within finance and within S&OP, is in a different league. We have now an AI running the S&OP independently based on the algorithm in the back end. So to answer your question, I don't know. I am not an expert in all the companies in the Middle East. So, but my knowledge from my connection that definitely the balance sheet and income statement, all the statements are generated now from advanced system everywhere. It is not anymore on Excel sheet. I hope I answer your question.
Thank you, Red. I think we have many questions coming on the way. So let me I'll come back to the same question and we can come back into the P&L back. So we have another question from our friend Muhammad Shadi. He is saying that quality cost will be under conversion cost, testing, sampling, quarantine period of a product.
Yes. So, Shadi, yes, I agree. So whatever quality checks to make sure that the product is in the right shape of the quality, we call this is direct interaction with the product because you ensure the product getting out of the factory gate are in the right shape for the consumer. Again, it is
Exactly.
within the factory premises. Let me put it this way. So whatever quality testing and improvement on the factory to make sure that we have the right product for the right consumer at the right time with the right packaging, this is within the direct cost attached to the product in the factory.
Yeah, just adding something, Greta, I think what you said, it's totally 100% right. When it comes to quality control, especially I'm saying that premises of the upstream, so whatever in the operation side, but there is always a cost of quality. I think it will not be covered here under the conversion cost, which is the quality you go to market. When it comes to all, I would say, the overheads and all the challenges that we have, the costs that we bear, it will be out of the conversion cost. This is a based on a real experience. It will not be in the conversion. Am I right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Okay. So coming back to our lovely slide.
Yep.
Okay. So feel
So
free.
So now we reached the sales revenue in the market for a certain period of time, whether actuals year to go or full year. We have the supply chain costs attached to that number of units sold in the market. The outcome or the abstraction from the sales revenue of the supply chain cost, the outcome of that equation, for the first time ever, good news, we're hearing the word profit. But again, it is called gross profit. This is not yet. So we
Mhm.
have the gross profit out of that equation. We're simply out of the gross profit. We have a magic KPI and equation called gross margin percentage, which is simply the gross profit over the sales revenue. And you see this
Mm.
everywhere where you have what is the margin, we have pressure on margin, we have benefit on the margin, we need to sell from the high margin, or we have to sell from low margin for other competitive moves. So whatever you see in terms of gross margin, it is fabulous equation to ensure the sustainability of the business year over year. And that's another challenge on the S&OP I received one day, Ahmed, where if the gross profit here is 3.9, for example, in that chart, how
Mhm.
about selling triple of that volume as a volume sold with a half of that price? We're
Mhm.
gonna land at the same absolute gross profit. You agree with me? As an absolute gross
Yeah.
profit.
Mhm.
True, I agree. But next year you will not be able to deliver this number. And the magic equation to tell you, or the magic percentage that tell you that you don't have a sustainable business for the future, is the percentage out of the gross profit out of sales revenue. And I don't
Yeah.
want you to memorize a certain percentage. I need you to understand what do you mean by gross margin percentage. It's simply how much out of your sales revenue after removing the cost of the product attached to that product, how much of that is translated into a gross profit as a percentage.
Mhm.
So if you understand the percentage, this is how you're gonna drive the discussion. And whenever someone put the challenge for you that we have to increase our volume on that, or we need to change something on the product in terms of saving because of the gross margin, at least you understand where this person is coming from and
Yeah.
what they mean by gross margin percentage and what are the elements included in the gross margin percentage. So you can speak the language of that person either within S&OP or outside the S&OP.
Yes, I do remember something also, Rida, from you. I used to speak with you about maybe we have a gross profit of millions, millions, and due to a lower margin, the business case or just for a new innovation or a new launch or a new product will not pass and it will be rejected. And I kept asking myself, how come that a company could stop a business case that will have a profit, absolute profit of millions, because the margin is low? And I still do remember how you answer it in a very simple way, which is you look at it from the cost and price. So you have two ways from the price point of view, because you have an index of market. So imagine with me, if there is a massive competition happened, or a massive promotion happened, or just a decrease in the price itself, so you'll be in a position that you need to reduce your price. This definitely will eat from your profit, and it will take you down. And imagine also from the upstream side, which is the cost. If the cost is going up, some is like what we have right now, the increase in the commodity one time, this at a time, if you don't look into the margin, which is the percentage, it could be deceiving you, because I could have like $2 million profit, but I have like 4% margin. It means that if there is any variance from the price decrease or cost increase, I could go into a negative margin or a negative profit. 2 million, it could come into negative absolute value. And this is just that's why I wanted to highlight for people or the audience to think about this. Margin is the only thing that you can focus on. It. Don't be deceived only by profit if it's a higher absolute value.
Exactly, exactly. And that's why it is not, it is mainly the sustainability of the business in way forward to make sure that you have a sustainable business. And not only that, because we said it's a good news, it's a gross profit. We still have some expense. So make sure that you have the right level to finance or to inject on the business on the rest of the costs that we're having, which is very important that we're going to go through it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I think we have another question, Red. So if you allow me, I'll jump into this question. We have Umaima Sulaiman. She's asking, since the financial forecast is the ultimate output or to S&OP, there ideally should be a huge difference between the two. Yet this situation, in some cases, what are your views on this? And what are the actions that can be taken to tackle such challenges? I
Yeah,
think it came from a real on-ground experience. Thank you
yeah.
for this amazing question,
I
Umaima.
think it's an amazing question, Owaima. I fully agree and I fully understand where you're coming from. And let me tackle this question from a different perspective, okay? When you speak about financials, this is a critical view for the company to be published as a financials. So the submission of all the financials as a financial forecast at the end, it add up to the total organization financials. And within that, we cannot have big swings months on months. So you have
Mhm.
to be assured and you have consistency in delivering your financials. Because if you're a listed company or even you're an entrepreneur and you want to have someone to do an acquisition to your business, the person asks you, give me your financials, financial forecast financials,
Mhm.
not a what if scenario financials, which we call it S&OP in our case. So the financials has to be extremely strict and make sure that we have the right level to predict the future. I call it the financial forecast is mainly the art of predict the unpredictable, where exactly you need to make sure that your predictivity level in the financial forecast is extremely high, based on experience, based on run rates, based on economic situation, based on political situation, especially in our region or anywhere. So that's very important. Now, whenever I give someone a target to deliver, the target need to be smart. Remember the abbreviation of S and M and A and R and T. It has to be achievable. It has to be measurable. I just don't
Mhm.
want to go through it. So in some cases, Umayma, we have the S&OP number to be smart, to stretch the business, and to make sure that we land the right strategy in the market through a decent number to deliver. And whenever we take that risk and we have a shortfall or out or over delivery, we have the solid gate at the end of the tunnel. We call it that, which is the financial forecast at the end. That's why the financial forecast has to be extremely solid and flexible enough to absorb all the unforeseen risk on the market, where you cannot predict everything in the market. That's why ideal cases we should have based on the current situation and based on the history of MIME as well. If I know that Ahmed Khalid, as an S&OP officer, the tolerance level or the bias or the delivery of Ahmed Khalid for the last 3, 4 months or even 1 year, 12 months he's around 5 to 2% deviation versus the S&OP, then I have the confidence that Ahmed will deliver this number and will be enough to be stretched. But if Ahmed Khalid in 1 month over delivering massively, under delivering massively, we don't have the consistency. Here, the financial forecast need to step in and play a bigger role to ensure the consistency in the
Mhm.
business and drive the right stretch for the business to deliver the targets.
Yeah, I think you have put it in a very simple way, Rida. If you allow me, I'll add something in that point because it came as a struggle, and I understand why Umaima is asking this question. And I think there are two factors here, and especially the leadership should look at it, especially in B2B business. And when you manage these challenges with your distributor, so manage it as distributor is your business. Because I keep saying that some companies in B2B, they're at the end of the day, their P&L and their income statement, it's because of the primary sales. You have a primary sales and you have a secondary sales. Uh, just pushing a primary sales and you are just degrowing on a secondary sales, this will put you in a very restricted or a very challenging position because you will have some overstocks, I would say, because you're always your shipment is always over and above the norms, the agreed stocks, whether you're working with your distributor as a replenishment or whether you're working with an order cycle. So all of this should be taken into consideration, the inventory and your shipment. Look at it from that point, because also the distributor has inventory, and looking into just the one side from the equation, which is the primary, and don't look into the secondary sales, even the territory sales from the retail side, will put you in a very, very, very restricted and very challenging position. And that's why it comes at the end of the day, the leadership position when it comes to decision like that. And I understand this because you are shipping and you are selling on SQ level. Sometimes when you want on just a channel level, on a category level, on segmentation level, you need to grow this segment on a specific level. But looking it at lump sum, I need to uh, overship because over the stocks that I have, this will put you in a very restricted position in next year or the next period. So looking at it, this is the equilibrium between your shipment and at the same time your inventory. This is very essential one. Yeah.
I think, Ahmed,
So
today we're going to cover only the income statement with this your
I,
question.
yeah, we have another question. So I will jump into this question from Ahmad Al Hamamsi, my co-host. Ahmad Al Hamamsi is saying that why companies focus on hitting a certain percentage of EBITDA,
ITADA.
yes, and what's the difference between this and the bottom line? Which level should I focus on more in S&OP?
I think if you go back, fabulous question, Ahmed. I fully agree with what you're saying. If you go back to the slide, Ahmed, so we can answer the
Sure.
question here. So, Ahmed, I'll ask you to park your question for a few seconds. I'll just finish the last part of the income statement, and then I'll make sure to answer your question in details. Now, we reached the fabulous number, which is gross profit, for example, and based on that, we have the gross margin percentage, which is the percentage of the gross profit out of the sales revenue. Out of that, if you're planning for any advertising or any digital investment, especially with this today world in COVID area where everyone's spending more time on a screen, that's very important. You have, and back to my questions about the people cost. Now we have other general and administrative expense, which is, for example, other people costs that they are not directly interacting with the product within the factory premises, for example, or they don't have a direct impact on the product cost on the factory. So somehow we have the HR people, we have the finance people, we have management people. All of this, we have the office expense, laptops, whatever is related to the total cost as an overall business. We have it under this line, and this line is extremely important because
Mm.
who's driving the P&L at the end? People under these two lines. Again, it's all about the people and the business. So people is not just a number, but they are the passionate people driving the business. And that's why this line is extremely important to see the right level of operating income. Now, we moved from one good news, which is gross profit. Now we have another better news called operating income. and we call it operating because still not as a net income. And for the first time ever, we have the word income on the income statement after removing all of this cost. So once we
Mm.
have the operating income, and that's where, Ahmed, your question, actually, we have the interest expense, where a certain costs that need to be paid as an interest, and then you have the income before income tax, and that's mainly your question is lying on, because at the end, whatever you have tax authority within your country, you need to subject for tax for the company, and that line will be under income tax expense. So whatever companies is focusing on EDT, DDA, it's very important because of their public sharing of their income statement and how much they are driving as a income before income tax, and the percentage of that income before tax from the sales revenue, which is extremely important percentage as well. So that's a fabulous another important KPI for any business to grow. If after all deducting the cost of advertising and people cost and interest expense, and now you have the income before income tax, you have a great percentage, whether low or high, compared to your geographic country, continent, wherever you are in the planet, and you have a decent percentage compared to your business as an income before income tax out of sales revenue, that can ensure that you have sustainable business for the future. So if I'm an investor, for example, Ahmed, and I want to make sure that I'm investing on the right company that will grow and survive in such a storm that we're having now. So if I want to make sure that this company will grow, I need to look at 2% mainly to make sure that we have a decent gross margin percentage, which is the gross profit out of sales revenue. That give me a good indication. And another indication related to the income before income tax, because we have the people cost, we have the advertising cost, which is very important element, need to be accounted for. And that's why we have a clear focus in these 2% in the P&L. Now, in the S&OP, back to your question, whether we discuss, definitely we have to discuss the full P&L, the full income statement, as a
Mm.
discussion of the income S&OP. So we cannot only have a discussion of S&OP till the gross margin percentage, because we have the rest of costs. Remember, I said gross profit is just a gross profit. We still didn't reach the word income. The minute
Mm.
we receive the net income and the percentage of the net income out of sales revenue, this is where you have the real money at the end.
Now, I think we have another question, Reda. Let's take this question and come back. We have our friend Judith. She is asking, these COVID times for surely provided some truly uh, unpredictable for many companies. Your experience, Ahmed and Mahmoud.
Yeah, I think COVID was a learning for everyone. This is something that we have never ever experienced before, and we're all learning together on that. That's the first message. The second message, which is very important, if you notice at the beginning of the COVID, cash was the big concern for all companies to make sure that uh, cash is the king. This is very important, and that's why I
Exactly.
need to have a chance to cover the P&L where we have the cash element in that. So I think the learning from that to ensure that you have enough cash as a company, because even I got a lot of questions from my friends. They have their own company, especially small and medium enterprises, Ahmed. Especially within COVID, they have fixed costs like rent, salaries within their organization, and they don't have enough sales. And even when they sell in credit, and they have dues that need to be paid now. And
Exactly.
that's where you have a failed company. So having enough cash, especially with COVID situation, that's very important, where we can later on cover through the working capital in another session. So that's one learning we learned. The second point, which is simply the flexibility was changing with the consumer behavior, and the supply chain respond and the finance respond to that in the market. This is very important, especially during COVID, because you have a new environment, a new consumer with a different shopping behavior in the market. If you don't
Mm.
have the right response with the right product in the market, you will not be able to fulfill and grow and generate cash as well for your fixed cost. So it's a simply, if you, there is a say where if you have a hammer, everything will look like a nail, and this is very important. You cannot continue the way you're running the business before COVID, after COVID, and you can see the booming of the online and e-commerce everywhere. So now people started to speak the contactless delivery, for example, everywhere. So if you don't have the right fit portfolio and product and service for the era after COVID, you don't have a seat on the plan. So that's very important to make sure that you have this skill. The last point on the predictability, which is simply to the best of your estimate. So, this is the basic stuff. For example, you go for a forecast based on run rate. You see the trend for the last 3-4 years. You have the seasonality impact. Ahmed is an expert on that to explain more. But within COVID, you don't have run rate and history because you have a different consumer. It's like
Yes,
vaccination.
behavior.
Within vaccination, you don't have a real data for the vaccination, where I encourage everyone to go and take. But at the same time, this is something new for us, and same for business applied like the vaccination.
Yeah, I like what you said. You put 3 points, which is, I think that you covered the whole point, Rida. From my perspective, I would take it from the downstream till the upstream, and I speak a little bit about the supply chain. So, when uh, just COVID-19 happened, it's an indication that supply chain is vulnerable, and it will be always vulnerable. So the good thing that the companies or the organizations or the supply chain that they survive in that moment, the companies or the supply chain that they're working closely with their customers, even not customers, their consumers. Because when the COVID-19 attacks, some companies and some supply chains that they got paralyzed, they don't understand how it will look like, how can we hold this inventory, how we will be able to take this sourcing. All of these challenges happened, and they keep their focus on the problem, not how to solve it. And what I'm saying here, some of the challenges here, if you want to solve because it's uncertain, you have to be always close to your customer and close to your consumer. Not looking, if I'm talking about B2B business, not looking only to the secondary sales, even look into the tertiary sales and go to the consumer, understand what's happening, because this will have like a bullwhip effect in the whole supply chain, so you can be ready. This is number one. Number two, I think also part from that is supply chain is vulnerable. This COVID-19 has put a big pressure and just open eye opener for some companies that they have to localize. They have to localize their chains, because once the congestion happened and the challenges that we have in port and custom clearance and even suppliers, they got blocked. And imagine with me that a company that has imported materials or imported finished goods, like 50% or 60% from their portfolio is finished good imported or imported materials. What will happen if those materials got blocked? The whole business will stop. Am I right? That's why I will come back again, Rida, for this point. I think some companies right now, they understand that they can somehow they take something from their margin and invest in their supplier development to localize, and ignore a little bit from their margins, just to ensure that the business continuity is there. This is just a view from my point.
Yeah, I have one point, because I have this because I used to partner supply chain partners, which is amazing journey. You know, a marketeer wants to build the fabulous campaign. Supply chain wants to build an empire of machines. Okay, finance speak only the do something and do nothing scenario, because
Mm,
I don't want to generalize the option of local manufacturing, the one that you mentioned. In
mm,
whatever situation, Ahmed, we need to have do something scenario. Back to Haddad question about the P&L. Let's have a P&L of the current situation and the
yeah.
decision that you were evaluating, and then the number will speak itself. You don't. It will be like the sun in the sky. You can see exactly the decision that you're taking and what impact you can have on the business. So that's why, as a finance person, as a finance major, I speak only the numbers, where we have the P&L speaks the difference. Now, I think that's my comment on whatever decision we take and whatever we do at the decision in the market. And I just want to don't speak only the big companies' language. Even if you have a small business, Ahmed, or a service, whatever you have a deal proposed that to supply service, you need to do the P&L yourself. What exactly the
Mhm.
volume or the service that you're gonna sell at what price, and what's the margin you're gonna generate out of that. If there's any other costs, put it on the right bucket. Don't calculate for your own business as if this is the total revenue I'm getting from that deal, and this is
Yeah,
the cost attached to it, and that's the net income at the end. You will never understand what happened if you have it in the right bucket in the P&L.
exactly.
That's very important for you.
Exactly. Thank you, Rida. There is another question from Mai. So she's asking, do you agree that in case the year to go seems at risk, we would agree with the team to influence the demand at a cost by adding ATL, PTL?
Yeah.
At,
So, so I think that's a pure uh, tactic question. So my answer to that, it depends. Okay, because if you have a certain strategy, because ETL is above the line, BTL is below the line when it comes to advertising or promoting in the market. So based on that, if you have an ETL and BTL, does it fit with the brand strategy? Does it fit with what exactly you intended to develop this product in the market? So if the product is meant to have an ETL and BTL, you have to invest because this is the vision and strategy of the product. And automatically, Mayan, that's the beauty of the financials. That's the beauty of the financials, that you're gonna invest when a product generate enough revenue or gross
mm,
margin to finance the ETL and BTL. That's the tricky part. And at the same time, it's okay to have a product that doesn't require an ETL and BTL, but the role of that product within your portfolio is to generate cash, for example. It doesn't have to generate anything else except cash, because every product in your portfolio has to play a role.
yeah, and I think also this is the role of S&OP and how you feed your unconstrained demand versus your constrained demand, which I would assume it's somehow or someone just inside the S&OP in week one, between week one and week two, where you will be able to answer what is the constraint that you have. The game here is how you will feed this to your S&OP cycle and how you will communicate this to the business. And if you have a big gap, I'm assuming that you're talking about year to go, is at risk. How you will be able to have a trade off and put this trade off in your forecast. Because if you don't put this trade off in your forecast and you keep it blind, you will have double hit. One from the existing scenario that you have already risk, and the other one on the long term, if you don't put the right forecast, you will have another shortage, which will be it seems that it will be another shortage in the long term if you don't put it. So I believe that it's a pure S&OP communication and influence and demand. This is what I want to say. Yeah. Coming back, Rida, to our P&L, and I think, guys, just one question I will ask the audience. I think we need to have another session. Who wants to have another session about the balance sheet? Because we are running out of the time, and it was very engaging one. Please write yes in the comment if you want to have another session about the balance sheet and the cash flow with Mahmoud Reda. I will come back to the P&L, Reda, if you want us
Yeah,
to
I think
continue.
the last piece of information here, that while I look like I'm fascinated of the P&L, but P&L has a lot of weakness point, and that's the beauty of the financial statement, that they are supporting, integrating with each other. That's very important. The company cannot survive with all the statements. So let me ask this question, Ahmed. What are the missing parts on the P&L? Because the P&L or the income statement has a lot of weakness point. For example, uh, let's ask this question. Do you think, with all of this information about the income statement and the beauty about it, you can see all the cost breakdown, what
Mm,
are the weakness points that you can see here? For example, um, if you say that in the P&L we don't have cash, you don't see the cash transaction here, which is very important. So for example, this is volume sold, and we're assuming the recording of the revenue is as per the guidance for the finance. I agree, but the cash generation out of this sale
mm,
is not there anywhere. That's a very important point that we need to cover in other statements. Uh,
yeah.
the other part as well is a big part of it is mainly maybe related to a judgmental call, because you can expect some unforeseen risk that you need to account for that hit your P&L. So there is a big element related to the accounting for the unforeseen risk within the P&L. That's another point. The third point, which is the phasing as well. If you look at the P&L on the season, you'll see a deceived P&L. Or if you look the P&L on the off season, it is a deceived P&L. So you need to make sure that you have the right comparison or the right period for the P&L, so you can judge the business correctly on that. Many other points, to be honest with you, but For the time being, that's the main highlight of the P&L, which is mainly the sales, and as well sales return. And sales return can be unforeseen risk. For example, you have an unforeseen
Yeah.
sales return from the market that you never expect. You don't know that for that. It's just a surprise. So that's why someone said in the comment, cash is the king, and we need to have the cash flow statement and the balance sheet. But that's the beauty of understanding the strengths of each statement. So if you understand the strengths of each statement and the weakness point, you can ask the right question, and you will get the right answer, and you will speak the language of the S&OP. Imagine if you don't understand this, you will never be able to speak the language in the business.
Yeah. Reda, I think that we have three things to be done in the coming 5 minutes. One, I think that we have a vote now from Hisham Zaki. He's saying agree, yes, to have another session. And we have our friend Muhammad Shadi. Yes. We have our friend Mitchell. Yes. We have Mahmoud Badr. Yes. We have Mahmoud Ghiz. He's saying yes. Basim. Basim is saying yes. Ashraf Gouda is saying yes. Umayma is saying yes. And Mai is saying yes. And just Judith also, she's saying indeed. And our friend Hina, she's saying yes. So I think that we have to schedule another meeting for the balance sheet and for the cash flow. Uh, the second one that I want to say, I think that our friend Mitchell is saying something. He's saying, but the thing is, Khaled and Reda, because each cash is king, and COVID 19 was such a disruption to cash flow. Most companies have gone into profit protections. With that mind, structure in organization have come under pressure to cut costs and unfortunately supports. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's why I think, just from my point of view, when it comes to that situation, it's all about how you can collect the cash, and especially the overdues. Sometimes payment on time, it's not on people or just the companies. They are not looking into it. But I think payment on time at this point, in especially in COVID-19, was the core focus to ensure that the business continuity is there, and also from the other side. If you want to put your also view, Rida, about this point.
I just on the comment, Michelle, on that comment. Forget companies, Michelle. If you have your own business, and you have uh, inflation in utility bills, for example. Let's assume that you're running the business in a country there is a removal of the subsidy of the electricity, for example, and at the same time you have many competitors that competing on the market with same product quality, with a lower price at the end. So the golden rule here that you have to examine all your expense and make sure that you're investing behind the right bucket, behind the winning battle, especially at this time.
Hmm.
There is nothing called nice to have. So this is not a narrow minding, but at the same time, and I love that, because whenever we have a financial situation or or criticality in the business, you should consult the book, what the book is saying, but you need to think disruptive, because disruptive situation will require disruptive thinking at the same time. You cannot act with the traditional way. Remember the comment to Judith about the before COVID and after COVID, which is very important. So that's my only takeaway on that. And that's why we're saying that cash is important, but at the same time, there is business to manage. And I said that,
Hmm.
and I hope you got my point. Income statement is very important. Cash flow statement is very important. Balance sheet is very important, but each statement play a different role to add up to the total company strategy. And that's why I said, don't judge the business only from the P&L. We have a lot of weakness point. At the same time, I agree with you. We cannot judge the business only from the cash balance in the bank. I fully understand that. But you have to link all the dots together to make sure that you have a winning formula in the market.
Yeah. The third point, Rida, and this is the last point. I need to thank you for your amazing and insightful information. And I believe that you can understand this from the engagement that we have today. And guaranteed, I think, and it's by force, no, just option, that we have we have to have another session to speak about the balance sheet and the cash flow, and maybe in the December or something like that. And coming back to this point, because I believe 1000% financials. It's essential for anybody in the business, whether operationally or tactical level or even at a strategical level. So understanding these financials will allow people to accelerate their business and even accelerate their future in their company. So again, thank you so much, and we'll have another session about that.
Thank you, Ahmed, and I would like to thank everyone around the call in that live. It was really a pleasure being with you, and I am extremely excited to see people from different backgrounds asking about financials, understanding financials. I hope I delivered the message, and I just need you to know that this is part of my purpose in life, which is giving back, whether sharing the knowledge. Because even I said that a few days back that I would loved if someone told me all of this knowledge 10 years ago. So I've learned it the hard way, which is for a wrong, for the right reason. This is how you shape, how this is how you shaped as you speak now. So I argue everyone, whatever information you received on that live, please make sure to spread the word, share the knowledge, add everyone if they have any lack on terms of financials or understanding the income statement. Google, this is very important. If you Google now P&L for dummies, that will be a fabulous chart, fabulous explanation. If you have in YouTube and all other platform on the internet, you can get that fabulous information, even better than what I said now. I can promise you, you're gonna find so exciting information about that. Important to do that.
Yeah.
And I wish you all the best. And thank you so much, Ahmed. It's really pleasure
Hey,
being with you.
it's a pleasure. The same here, Rida. And just adding up to what you're saying, I think, don't, guys, I'm telling you, don't just Google. You have already a movable Google, which is Mahmoud Rida. Connect with him on on LinkedIn. I'm talking seriously. Connect with him on LinkedIn. Ask him whatever questions that you have into your mind, because I had the same. He ignited many things, just to trigger many things inside me about understanding the financials. So please feel free to connect with him. He's very generous and very knowledgeable, and he will help you to achieve whatever you want. Thank you, guys, and have a great day. And again, we'll have another episode, inshallah, in December. Till,
Thank
have a
you.
great day.
Bye
Have a
bye.
great day. Bye bye.